Good evening and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual session. Tonight, we're going to be talking about healthy excellence, athletics at Vermont Academy. The structure of our Zoom this evening is I will be asking some questions of our amazing panelists. They're going to introduce themselves in just a moment. And then we will open it up for questions from you, from the people who are attending the session. I'll moderate those questions, and you can feel free to put them in the chat or to raise your hand and type them in the Q&A section. Before we get started, my name is Nora Dock. I'm the Director of Enrollment at Vermont Academy. I had a brief but illustrious career as assistant girls JV soccer coach, which was one of my favorite things that I've done here. And I am the parent to 3 Vermont Academy students. My oldest child participated in girls varsity soccer, girls varsity basketball, and girls varsity lacrosse. My middle child did wilderness exploration. He tried crew. He did snowboarding. He learned to snowboard on the ski hill at Vermont Academy, and he also participated in rock climbing. And my youngest child is a sophomore right now, and he has loved being a part of the mountain biking team. He does robotics. He also does fly fishing and rock climbing. So each of my kids have engaged with the athletics program at Vermont Academy in lots of different ways, and it's been so cool to see them take advantage of all the opportunities. I am joined by some of our incredible community members, a current student, our incoming athletic director, and a coach, and then a coach and one of our college counselors. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. This is my cat, Charlie. He will frequently get in screen. See if you can count how many times we see him. Eloise, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Eloise. I'm a senior. It's my third year at VA. I'm from the north of Quebec, a very far place. So if people are familiar with like Montreal, I'm like 6 hours up north, so it's kind of a drive. I play soccer all year long. It was my main sport coming here. It still is, but I also joined JV hockey my sophomore year, and I've been playing JV hockey in the winters since then. And I also do track and field. I've tried tennis before, and I also learned how to do snowboard on my own this winter. So,
Nice. That's awesome. Eloise, what else do you do in the community?
I'm a tour guide. I've been a tour guide since my first year. I'm also a world tour language, so for both French and Spanish. And yeah, I'm around. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Eloise. Karen, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. So I'm Karen Henry, and I first want to say congratulations to everybody. I know all of you have been accepted and or are enrolled. I know what an exciting time this is. I've been through it with my own children. So congrats. And yeah, it's a good time of year in the process. So I am the incoming athletic director, and I'm also the current girls varsity basketball coach. I actually have quite a long history with VA. I served a previous stint as a history teacher. I worked in the Center for Learning, and again earlier was the girls varsity basketball coach. I have a daughter who is a 2019 graduate of Vermont Academy, and she was a 3-sport athlete and earned a varsity jacket because she was a 3-sport varsity athlete for 4 years. So that was a really great experience for her as an athlete and for me to watch as a mom. I'm super excited. I start in July, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you, about our programs and our student athletes and their experience. So thank you.
And Dustin, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dustin Walsh. I see some familiar names here, so good to see you again. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dustin Walsh. I'm the head hockey coach here for the boys varsity team. Along with that, I am an assistant college counselor on campus. Um, this fall, I helped out with the JV soccer team, and then this spring, I am also helping out with the boys golf team.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, thank you all again for being a part of this discussion. I'd love to kick it off with a question for Karen.
Yeah.
Karen, as someone who has a long history with Vermont Academy and as someone who's coming in as our athletic director, could you please speak to us a little bit about what the school's approach is to fostering this concept of healthy excellence that we talk about a lot? How do we do that through athletic opportunities? How are we building engaged, competitive, but balanced student athletes?
Yeah, I love that. And actually, I think coming into the athletics department, it is going to be my mission, that our values are just kind of wrapped around this idea of healthy excellence. It's really rooted in the belief that success is not just about winning. We want to develop well-rounded, resilient, engaged, as you mentioned, Nora, student athletes who are going to thrive on and off the field. At its core, it's balancing high standards with really intentional support. Um, we're encouraging our athletes to perform at a high level, but to do it with perspective, that balance. And we really do create that balance really intentionally. We're encouraging multi-sport participation, which, I often tell the story that my daughter came in identifying as a soccer and a basketball player. And then she asked me if she could, hey, mom, I'd really like to try lacrosse in the spring. Great. That sounds great. And now if you ask her as a 25-year-old graduate what her, best athletic experience was at Vermont Academy, she would say lacrosse. So we want our athletes to explore other interests. We encourage and maintain open communication between faculty, between coaches and advisors to make sure that you're getting the academic and athletic and emotional support that you need throughout the year and throughout your season. And we do prioritize wellness as well. We encourage rest, recovery. We're supporting mental health. So we really want you to push yourself while maintaining perspective. I think, I think that covers it. I'm hoping that covers it. But really what we're hoping to do is to challenge you, develop you, but also support you while you're doing it. And I think that we do it really, really well within our community. Our coaches are teachers, our teachers are coaches. They know our students and as athletes. It is a beautiful, weaving of the two. And I think that's one thing that we're all really proud of as students and as coaches and as teachers. So yeah, I think we do a really lovely job of it.
Yeah, I saw Eloise nodding her head along to that. Elo, I'd love to hear what your experiences have been with kind of this concept of healthy excellence. I remember from your admissions process, you are someone who came in as a very high performing athlete in your main sport. You were driving hours to compete against boys in whole other towns, right?
Yep.
What do you have to add to this discussion about healthy excellence?
I'd say like coming from a very high pressure environment in soccer with like high standards, playing with boys because my hometown was like small and like, girls team weren't really big. So at school we had to play with boys. It's like always high pressure. I would wake up in the morning with like anxiety. I would still go to play, but like I would scared to make a mistake. I would scared to like, have confidence to like getting touches on the ball. And when I got here, like you said, teachers and dorm parents sometimes are your coaches, so they know like my and then one of my coaches, Edu, I'll always remember him because he was just like he was super nice. He was getting to know me as an athlete but also as a human being. He would see how I was acting at school with friends, out of school, on a soccer field, outside of the soccer field. So when he could see sometimes that I needed some rest, he would just come up to me and be like, you can step out of practice for today, go do something, go on a run, go on a walk. And that was just like kind of relieving to, you know, like have the stress off my shoulder for once at least in my life and not have all these expectations. And it was just super nice. And like I could enjoy playing soccer. Getting up in the morning, I was happy I was going to school. I know I was gonna play soccer with my friends. Like after classes, I would go have dinner with them, and it was just like like when they say playing for fun, when you're a high, like when you're a very competitive athlete, you really sometimes you don't really take it as as they say, like play for fun, and you laugh at it and you're like, yeah, but I want to win. But at the end of the day, like when you actually get to play for fun, it makes the whole thing really nicer, and just it makes it more enjoyable. So
Yeah. I think that kind of sets up nicely another question I wanted to ask you about, Eloise, which is you mentioned in your intro that you started playing JV hockey without having ever playing hockey before. What was
yep.
it like to be someone who had an identity, as Karen said, her daughter Sydney did, an identity in one sport, but then to decide to take that risk to try something new? How did you find that experience? And did you feel like there were any barriers to you participating?
So it was my first time ever stepping out of my comfort zone. I've always been a soccer player all my life, and in my hometown, like I didn't have the opportunity to like try another sport, just trying without like costing anything. So, my coaches kind of, encouraged me to be like, yes, you're playing soccer all year long, but you also need to do a winter sport. And I've always known how to skate, and people joke because like they say it's in my blood since I'm Canadian, but playing hockey was like never in my mind. So one time I had friends on the JV hockey team and I had friends on the varsity team, and they were like, you should try it for fun. I didn't have any equipment, but I didn't have to buy any. The school had it all, so I borrowed some for 3 years. And it was super nice because we've had girls like who never skated before. We've had some players who've played before but didn't want to make it their main sport. So since it was JV, commitments was like the commitment was really less of a big thing. So I played for fun all winter. And now that it's over, we got back from break. It's spring. I actually miss it. So I don't know if I'm gonna keep playing for fun at college, like in a club team or in my hometown, but that was something like that I'm gonna remember my whole life for sure. So
I love it.
Nora, can
Just,
I step in just for 1 second? I want to mention one thing. The idea that you came in as a high level soccer player and then expanded your horizons and got involved in a bunch of different things for fun. I think that's a really important point, Eloise. I think did I just say your name right? I'm sorry. Did I say?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, you got okay.
Mhm.
We have some really high level athletes and some really high level sports, right? And we can cater to that, and you can participate in that, and you can, if you have college aspirations. We have programs for that and supports for that. But I think it's really important to also mention that, even if you're not a high level athlete, we have programs that are appropriate for your competition level. We like to meet that, and I think that is that healthy balance. And I do love that about Vermont Academy, that you wanted to play JV hockey. You're not a varsity hockey player. We have that for you. Like that's,
Mhm.
to me, that's just super community building, and continues to prove that you can take risks at Vermont Academy, and they're really healthy and they're really fun. And I love that about our programs. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if as you're looking at your screen, I shared up there kind of a slide with a listing of all of the different
Yeah.
ways that our students are able to move their bodies and be
Yes.
connected to the world around them through play and sport. And some of those are individual pursuits and some are team-based, and they are offered at every level. So there is an entry point for every student and every athlete with every level of experience. Dustin, we've talked a lot so far about kind of the ways that coaches can both challenge and support their student athletes. I'd love to hear from your perspective, what is the role of a coach at Vermont Academy? And how are you approaching both kind of that student athlete skill development and goal setting, as well as building a positive team culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously building the strongest team we possibly can to, give us the best chance of success is of importance. But I think beyond that, what takes absolute precedence is, teaching our student athletes how to, manage their time, how to handle adversity, how, life skills that they're going to carry, beyond a team sport. I think the team sport is just a vessel for them to be able to develop these types of skills. So, my role as a coach is holding them accountable, right? So at the end of the day, all these guys want to play. The ultimate the prize is, in terms of hockey, it's ice time, right? Um, Winning isn't everything, so it doesn't come down to, well, he's the most skilled player on the team. He's going to play. No, that's not how it works. I don't care if you're a freshman or a senior. You need to do the correct things day in and day out, which, being the best possible student you can be, being the best community member you can be, and then being the best athlete you can be, right? But that comes down to, doing well in the classroom, being on time for meetings, being respectful to everyone else on campus. And if you're not doing those things, it's my job to hold you accountable and teach you right from wrong. And those are really the values that I think these kids will take with them once their experience at Vermont Academy is finished up.
Yeah. And Dustin, you also wear the hat of a college counselor. And we have students who commit to continuing their sport in college at all levels. We have a student athlete who just committed to a really high level mountain biking team. We have a baseball athlete who's committed to the University of Tennessee and is in the MLB draft and just had 58 MLB team scouts watching him on their spring break trip, right? We have students who make the decision that they want to play club in college, or they want to pursue a school with a really strong academic program and an opportunity for them to play competitively. From a college counseling perspective, how do you set those students up for success?
Yeah, for sure. I think it comes down to communication between us and the student, and in regards to what they're looking to do. I think hockey's a really great example of this because the route to playing college or even club sometimes comes down to continuing your hockey career and playing junior hockey after you graduate from Vermont Academy. Um, we have a non-negotiable rule here in college counseling where, let's say a kid wants to go play junior hockey, he still has to go through the Common App process, the college seminar process. He has to apply to a handful of schools, just so he's prepared and he's already been through this journey of the Common App. We don't want students to, call us in 2 or 3 years and be like, hey, where's my rec, or where's my transcripts? So in order to make sure that doesn't occur, we make sure every student goes through the process, applies to a handful of schools, maybe some that are reaches, some that are good fits, and maybe some safety schools. But really, it comes down to what they want to do, and we support whatever they want to do. Just because there's a varsity hockey player who, doesn't want to play after. I think Blake Postle is a great example where he probably could play junior hockey and continue his journey. However, he got into some really amazing schools. He knows exactly what he wants to study. So that's the route he's going to take. And I totally support that. And for those of you who don't know, Blake Postle is a senior on our team. He's a phenomenal kid. He was a leader on our team this year and a big part of our community.
We love.
If you don't mind, Dustin, I'm going to kind of dovetail off that a little bit just in the basketball world, just kind of where I'm coming from. And I would also say that, I think it's incredible when kids have the opportunity, athletes have the opportunity to continue their sport after high school. For me as a coach, and I know that, having been there previously working with college counseling, we also want to make sure it's a really good fit. So I know college counseling, right? So with the understanding that yes, you want to play and you might want to play at a very high level, we're also as coaches, as college counselors, going to make sure that it's a really good fit for you as well. I never want that to be overlooked. So have those high aspirations. We love it. We want to support it. And make sure that you are going somewhere that works for you and who you are. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. For some of our premier sports, we have students who have been in contact with coaches throughout the admissions process, and they are, kind of declaring their interest in having a spot on the roster. And that becomes a big part of why they choose to enroll at Vermont Academy. For some of our fall sports, that means that they're invited to participate in preseason training. And Eloise, I thought you'd be a great person to tell us a little bit about what preseason looks like at Vermont Academy.
So for soccer, we would have, we get here earlier than like I think it's like 4 days, I think, or five earlier than what normal students would arrive. And a typical day is like we don't have classes, so we wake up, we go to breakfast, we have 2 hours practice in the morning. We go to lunch. We usually do some team bonding. So we have a river down the road. We usually go to the river as a team. We can go on a run, walk. Our coach, Miss Nadvig, had a lot of fun activities for us to do. And then we'd have another session in the afternoon, 2 hours or less, depending like if it was really hot outside or anything. And it would be more relaxed. Maybe we would go on a run in the woods. So I think for preseason, it's a lot of training. It's a lot of like coaches getting to know the players and players getting to know each other. Because one thing here that I had never experienced before was playing with um people from other countries. And as someone who's not from America, my playing style was very different than the Americans. And then this year we had another Spanish girl on the team. We had a Mexican one. So it's a lot of different playing styles, but it's like a moment for us to, align our playing styles together before going into season, and it's a lot of team bonding to make sure everyone gets to know each other because like before I came to VA, I've always had the same team, same group of people. But when you get here, some students arrive, some students leave, and like Mr. Walsh said, you earn your spot, so you might be a senior, a junior playing with some freshmen on your team. So it's a different adaptation, but it's preseason is made for us to really get to know each other as players as well as teammates more than anything, so that we go into the season fully prepared, knowing our coaches and knowing our um flaws as well.
Yeah. I think for fall season, we invite preseason athletes in boys varsity soccer, girls varsity soccer, and mountain biking. And it's pretty common that there will be students who say, I'm not sure if I should come to preseason or not. And there, we always encourage students to reach out to the coach directly. And most often the reply is, come try it. See if varsity is the level that of commitment and challenge and competition that feels right for you as you start your journey at Vermont Academy. And that continues throughout the first couple weeks of practices too. I know, there are often times where the girls JV team and girls varsity team will do some drills together, and some players play up and some players play down. And that's a really exciting opportunity for students too, I think. Yeah. We've talked a lot about coaches and how important they are in the student athlete experience. And coaches change. There are times when, a coach who you formed a really strong relationship with will leave and pursue other opportunities. I know that there are some questions from some people attending tonight, particularly around girls varsity hockey, where we will be having a change in coach for the fall. And I would love to hear, from Karen, from Dustin, from Eloise, because I know you've experienced some change in coaches as well. What does that mean for you as a student athlete with a roster spot when there is a change in coaching staff?
Louise, do you want to go first with your experience?
Yeah. So I've experienced that last year. So the coach that initially recruited me and brought me here stayed for my sophomore and junior year, and then he had change in his life, so he had to leave. Um, I was thinking of like what my senior year would look like. How because we had a really close connection, but the first thing I want to start off with is you can always contact these people. My birthday was like a week and a half ago, and my coach, he messaged me and he kept me like he made sure I was okay, how my life was going, just getting life updates. And as a new coach is coming in, sometimes they don't really know your playing style as well as the other coach, but I think it's always a good thing to turn it positive and just show it to them. So if you're going into a season, new coach, you don't really know, they don't know you, you don't know them. Just, I stepped up on the field and I was like, I'm gonna show what I'm capable of. I know I'm an athlete. If I want to have my spot, then I'll earn it. Like no matter what I have to do, you show up. And I think you don't really, if you think too much, it's gonna really bother you too much. So just step up on the ice, on the court, on the field. You play how you know how you play, and then what goes after you can't really control it. But as long as you're proud of yourself and what you've been doing, then I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think one thing that we can say is that, when coaching vacancies, teaching vacancies, right? When vacancies happen, you can be assured that we are going to, find the best candidates and put the best people in positions that we can. But your position is the same, right? You're a recruited athlete. You're going to be playing the same sport that you were recruited for, the same position. And regardless of coach, you're going to take on the challenge of earning your spot and earning your playing time. I know Dustin, you recruit players, I recruit players for basketball. And the expectation is the same, whether you're recruited or not. You are all out there fighting for a position. You're all out there trying to get better every single day. That doesn't change even when a coach changes. So you can expect, to get out there and to practice and to run your drills and to play the way you play, just as you would for any coach, really. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, and I think given my current situation where this is my first year, so I basically inherited a varsity roster. And of course, during the summer when I got hired, I did my research and reached out to every single family, new and returning, and I did my due diligence to find out who is who and what type of player they are and what type of human they are. But at the end of the day, that was my roster. And when I came in, I told the boys very simply, listen, you're all held to the same standard. I don't care what your role was last year. You get a chance to show me who you are as a human, who you are as a teammate, and who you are as an athlete. And basically you kind of control your own destiny. So to the point of the varsity spots, it really does come down to them showing up, proving their worth and earning their spot.
I think that's really helpful and wonderful perspective. Just as you as coaches are recruiting students to fill spots on your roster, all of those students are also having to fall under the umbrella of, are you a good match for Vermont Academy as a student, athletics aside? And you have all, I've talked to pretty much everyone on this call, that in the admissions office, we are primarily concerned with, are you kind? Are you curious? Is there something in the world that lights you up? And that's our bare minimum requirements above and beyond your academic credentials, your athletic accomplishments, and your outside interests. We want to know that when you show up in our classrooms, you are going to acknowledge the worth and dignity of every other member of the community. You're going to view each other all as assets. That is one of our core beliefs, and we live it every single day. And it is easily transferable to the athletic sphere as well. Those were all of our kind of predetermined questions. I'm going to stop screen sharing now so that I can see if anyone wants to either drop a question in the chat, or raise your hand or use the Q&A function. I am happy to share it and moderate questions for our wonderful panelists. And we'll give people a couple minutes to summon their bravery in asking a question. Eloise, what's your spring sport right now?
I do track. I also play club soccer, but I have time for track, so I'm doing track.
You're doing track? Okay, that's
Yep.
great. Okay, it looks like there is a question. So this is a great question. What programs are considered a high level at Vermont Academy? What are kind of the highest level of competition and challenge?
Yeah, that is a great question. All of our varsity programs we would, I would consider, I think we would all consider it to be high level. We do, all of our varsity programs do actively recruit athletes. We play challenging schedules. There's work outside of the actual season. We have for instance, a prep basketball team. Some of our soccer teams, they're practicing all year. Dustin, I believe your varsity soccer team is working on skills and practicing all year as well. If it is a varsity sport, you can, it's pretty guaranteed that you're going to be playing or being asked to play at a higher level and a higher skill level. And probably more than likely outside of season as well. So dedicating some extra time and energy to that as well.
Yeah, there are a couple areas where we have unique partnerships and training opportunities as well. Certainly with our varsity soccer programs, we partner with La Liga, Grassroots International. There's a technical director from La Liga who resides on our campus and works with our soccer athletes. They have the opportunity to play year-round, as Elo mentioned, she does. And then certainly in our sports on snow portfolio, we have a secondary campus located at Mount Snow where students can be fully in residence for all of winter term. They have sort of a flipped schedule where they are training at the highest level all day long in alpine, free ski, snowboard, border cross. And then they do their academics in the evenings in small group or tutorial format. Several of those athletes are currently out at nationals in Colorado, and they are Elizabeth Thompson just got second place, which is crazy and amazing accomplishment. Those are students who are pursuing the highest level of competition and challenge. As Karen mentioned, many of our varsity sports are playing very challenging schedules against very challenging competitors within our Lakes Region Athletic Conference. There are also within that varsity portfolio teams that welcome student or players at all levels. For example, our baseball team won the championship last year. They have very experienced athletes and they welcome students who are just love the game and want to play. And those students also have a spot on the baseball team. So there's a real range of high profile, high performing teams that still have entry points for athletes at varying levels of experience. There's another question that asked in follow up to that one, are there extra costs associated with any of the athletic teams? And there are for programs like equestrian and sports on snow. There will be and golf, there will be extra fees that might cover memberships or stable time or, specialized training. But those are all listed on our tuition and fees portion of the website. And if you have a question about one, feel free to email me and I'm happy to send you if there are any corresponding fees. There's another question that asks, if someone is reticent to play an off-season sport because they are there to focus on a very specific sport, what happens? How do we encourage students to take that little risk like Elo did in trying JV hockey? How do we cultivate multi-sport athletes, particularly ones who have specialized for many years?
Dustin, I'm going to ask you to start that conversation. I know that you've been in the mix at VA, with a lot of your hockey players. I'm sure that you're falling into that. My girl basketball players are it's a little bit of a different circumstance. So I'm curious to hear, how you're handling that as a coach. I know a lot of your boys are probably trying to play in the off season and specializing.
Yeah, of course. In the fall, we do have a split season team that we're partnered with. Which I do think is important. However, we try to have the kids strategically do something that will not neglect another sport. I want them all to try to compete in other sports. Our split season isn't extremely rigorous in the sense that you're practicing every single day and you're playing games every single weekend. We probably do one practice for this coming fall, one practice a week, and there are some weekend games. But we do offer some activities that align very well with our sport. For example, strength and conditioning in the fall is something that a lot of the hockey players do, but we have had other athletes Kevin Summers comes to mind, who was on the varsity soccer team as well. So we want them to have that diverse experience. Honestly, it's one of the key things why I came to Vermont Academy. I went to prep school myself for a year, and I think that diverse experience is really important. There's no need to specialize to that extent, right? We offer something to keep them, in shape and keep their skills up and prepare for the season. But in the winter, it's hockey. In the fall, it's strength and conditioning or another sport. And in the spring again, um, that's when we really shut it down. And I tell them all and encourage them all, try something you haven't tried before, right? We have a handful of kids playing lacrosse for the first time this year. We have a handful of kids playing golf from the hockey team. So I truly believe it's very important that they have that diverse experience. And as a coach and someone that I would hope they look up to, I encourage them to try those other opportunities and not just don't come here and just be a hockey player.
Yeah, and I'll
Oh, do
speak
you?
to. Oh, so
No, go ahead, Karen.
Just speaking to basketball, which I am, particularly familiar with, I know AAU is running in both fall and spring now, right? And I know when you are, a high level basketball player and you are coming to a prep school to play basketball, the expectation is that you are going to play AAU on both ends of that season, to keep your skill level up. We appreciate that and understand that. And I know that, in the past, VA has worked with athletes to ensure that they can still participate on their AAU teams. But again, I want to echo what Dustin has said. I think all of us as coaches are really looking to try to ask our high level athletes or specialized athletes to take those risks and to diversify, not only just skill wise, but also community wise. It's really important. We want to build community. We want to support each other and each other's programs. And asking our athletes to participate in multi-seasons or activities really helps to support that and to bring that community together. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be a team sport. We have a lot of different activities that are offered in the spring or, in the fall outside of the basketball season that will do just that, just help you get involved in the community. So I would always encourage that.
I just wanted to add one thing, if that's okay, Nora.
Yeah, of course.
Also, Karen kind of just sparked this in my brain, but it's also a great opportunity for them to build a bond with maybe a student they would have never built a bond with. And I even had that experience this past fall, being the assistant coach of the JV soccer team. The bonds that I built with some of these students very early on in my time here at VA would have never happened if I didn't help out that JV soccer team. So again, it's another outlet to build some strong connections with other students on campus.
And I will say, we have a pretty famous basketball alum, Bruce Brown, and I will never forget. He played JV soccer, boys soccer, and he also played baseball. And I will never forget some very high level college coaches came in and watched him play JV soccer. They came up and they were like, "Oh, this is really cool. Look at him go. He's so fast. He's got footwork." So it's possible. It's out there, and lots of people, lots of people enjoy watching you do other things.
There's a question asking about logistically, how do you balance the student part of being a student athlete? And Elo, I'd love to hear from you. How do you manage, homework and preparation for assessments when you are traveling for games? Sometimes you are driving to Maine, sometimes you are going to Canada, you're traveling all over to compete, and you have practices every day. What are some of the ways that Vermont Academy makes it possible for you to balance that aspect of your experience?
So first of all, it's very well organized. Every night we have 2 hours to study, do homework from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sometimes you'll be away for a game, but it's every single night, which I never had before in my life. I would do my homework in the car coming back from a game, from a practice. I would have to go straight shower, go to bed, go to school in the next morning. So it was really like, like I said, high pressure, anxiety, getting your work done in. But VA does a very good time. We go to classes all day long. We have our trainings after classes. We still have time to eat, time to do anything else, time to go with our friends, play with our friends, and then we have 2 hours to study. And when we have games, like during the fall, it's usually on Wednesdays and Saturdays, which are half days. So we don't really miss a lot of school. And when, let's say, like we have a showcase in Montreal during the winter, we go to every year. We do miss a bit of school, but we stay in touch with our teachers, our advisor, our dorm parents, so we know what we're missing. Teachers are sending the work. It's just, you really have to get in touch and let them know everything. But they'll send you the plan, the class plan or anything, so like you really don't miss anything. And it's very organized and you have time to do everything, so it can seem like a lot if you look at it on paper, but once you actually do it, it's really easier. And not every single practice is 2 hours. Sometimes they cut it shorter, so we have times to do something else. We have rest day as well, so it's really not that bad.
You
Eloise,
know,
can I ask a quick question? If you have a later practice, right, multiple teams, one rink, one court, if you have a later practice, do they still require you to have the 2 hour study hall after your classes are over? I know we used to do that. I don't know, Dustin, if you still do that as well. So if you are going to miss in any way, going to miss study hours, we used to hold study hours as a team. Do you all still do that? I think I just want to, right? Like
So I
it's a
I
priority.
remember when we went to Montreal. So this year and last year, boys and girls were separated, but my first year when we went, both girls and boys, we were in the hotel lobby and there was like a classroom type of room, and we were all doing homework. So
Yeah.
even if we were in Montreal and in another country, um Mr. Diaz, the boys' varsity coach, was looking at us doing our homework. We couldn't go. We didn't have our phones. We could listen to music, but that was all. So even in another country, we're still doing our homework, studying, working because we had the time for it. So
Yeah,
I
good.
think as a parent, as the parent of an athlete, that was one of the greatest gifts that Vermont Academy gave to my daughter was building that muscle memory of how do you balance your athletic commitments with your social commitments and your academic commitments. And as a parent who spent countless hours driving my child to and from practices and competitions her entire life, it was enormously freeing for her mental space to have all of her practices in one place. She did not have to stress about getting stuck in traffic. She didn't have to worry if she had left equipment at home or her part of her uniform at home. Her whole athletic experience and her academic experience were on the same campus. And even more importantly, most athletes and different teams, you're practicing at similar times. So you don't have to sacrifice spending time with friends in pursuit of academic and athletic excellence because you're all kind of following a similar rhythm. And that was just like transformational for us. We have time for just one more question. And this is a great one. The question is asking, do teammates room together at VA? Or do students who have similar schedules, even if they're in different teams, do they room together? So anyone who wants to answer that one, feel free.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I live in alumni dorm as a dorm parent, and we had 17 of 19 hockey players all stay in the same dorm. They all were roommates with each other, which I thought was great, given that, if your head coach is in the same dorm as you, I think it gives you added incentive to maybe be on your best behavior and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing during study hours. So yeah, speaking for hockey, all of our athletes have had hockey roommates, except for I think this year the freshman boys were all in one wing. So I think our freshman goalie maybe had a different roommate, and then Kevin Summers, a senior of our team, was a proctor in that dorm looking over the freshmen. So for our team, yes.
Yeah, our student life office does a great job of sending out a survey to students, right? Elo, you probably remember yours, and it asks you about kind of your habits and preferences. Do you like to stay up late? Do you get up early? Do you listen to music? Do you like a messy room or do you like a clean room? Elo's room looks beautiful right now. Great job, Elo. Those questions are all meant to pair students based on compatibility, and that's really how it works when you are new to the community. Then, after your first year, you are able to request a specific residence and a specific roommate. And that's where some students prefer to room with, you know, players on their team as well. Eloise, who's your roommate right now?
Her name's Ines. She's a really good skier. She's from VAMS and she's from Spain. And I've had three different roommates, my 3 different years. The only request I had was the same room, and I wanted a Spanish roommate because my first one just made me fall in love with the whole Spanish community. And I've had Spanish roommates all of my years, and I've never been more grateful, like actually. And I plan on going to Spain this summer, seeing all of my friends, and then my roommate from my sophomore year, she actually uh came here to surprise me, but I was gone. So both our families met in Montreal. Her family drove all the way up. We drove down just to meet. So it was like I hadn't seen her in like a year and a half, I think. So it was a great moment. So even if she was from Spain, she still came down here, wanted to surprise me. So I think it's like building connections for life, whether teammates or not. My first roommate was my teammate, and then last year and this year we had like no sports in common. We had friends in common, but then we became super close, and I think that's really nice because you spend your time with people, with your sport, with people at school, and then you have in your room someone who's doing different things, and you can just get a taste of it by just like talking with them and other people in your dorm. So I think it's really nice.
I love that story that she came to surprise you. Was that
And I
Carmen
was
or
going,
someone else?
yeah,
Oh, that must have been amazing. Um, Carmen and Eloise both had really big, exciting energy together. They're a lot of fun to see when they're hanging out. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. We are just about at the end of our time together. I want to especially thank our panelists for sharing their experiences. For those of you who attended, thank you for spending part of your evening with us. If you think of any questions that you weren't able to ask during the Zoom, please feel free to send me an email. I'm always happy to connect you with somebody in our community who can get you the response. And we look forward to the possibility of having you join us in the fall. We hope that you do decide to become a Vermont Academy Wildcat. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and thanks so much for spending time with us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.